All right, we are recording. So if you need to leave, or there are others who have registered and they said that they couldn't make it live. So, or if you just want to watch it again, I'll send the recording to you. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So I'll be speaking away for a little while, but I don't like talking for too long. Don't want you to get sick of my voice. So I'll just talk a little bit about these methods, and then we can get applying. So I hope you have, if you want to get involved, I hope you've got your guitar close by. If you just want to observe, then feel free. So just a couple of points here, starting in the preface. So I've come to the realization and the knowledge that a lot of people seem to waste a lot of time when they practice, and myself included. I'm just as guilty of this as well, and it's something that I've tried to learn, how to not waste time. So maybe just to get some quick nods or shakes of the head. Do you feel like sometimes you waste time when you practice? Yeah, getting a lot of nods. Yeah, okay. So that's something I hope to help you with today. And I think the reason is that we're often not taught how to practice, and we end up developing intuitive methods. So intuitive methods are things like no pain, no gain, or practice makes perfect, or if you at first you don't succeed, try and try again. That sort of mentality tends to come up if we're not taught how to practice. And what I've found is that the more effective practice methods tend to be counterintuitive. So they go against what you might think is the right way to do it. So that's really what this book, I think a lot of these methods, if you've scanned through, you might think like, wow, that seems that's kind of seems like maybe it'll be a waste of time, or that will take a lot of effort or something like that. Or you might the opposite of that. You might think this is so obvious, right? This is so obvious, but do we actually? Is that how you're actually practicing? Sometimes we have to take stock of that. So, and then the fact of having lessons. Do most of you have a teacher, private teacher you study with, or not? Yeah, nods of the heads. I'm just getting sort of general idea. Oh, a lot of you are not showing video. That's fine. Yeah, a lot of you seem to have teachers, so that's great. But yeah, even if you have a teacher, you typically have a lesson once a week, and you might find, as I found, sometimes my best practice was during a lesson. Yeah, because you've got someone there who's guiding you, and so I found my best practice can be during a lesson. But we only have lessons once a week, so typically. So that means most of your practice time is on your own. And musicians from past centuries seem to be keenly aware of this. This is a quote by Couperin, who was a very famous composer from the Baroque period. And I mean, he's talking about children here, but it can, you can apply this. You can sort of imagine this can apply to anyone. So during the first lessons given to children, it is best that they not practice except in the presence of the person who is teaching them. Youngsters are not focused enough to be able to pay attention to holding their hands in the position that has been prescribed for them. When I do this at the beginning lessons for children, I keep the key to the instrument on which I teach them, so that they cannot in a brief moment undo all that I carefully instructed during 3/4 of an hour. So an interesting, we've got someone joining, an interesting quote, I think, there. You can imagine if you just did the same thing with your guitar, and locked up your guitar for the rest of the week. Maybe, I mean, I've been teaching a good little while, one-on-one, and I do notice some of the students who don't practice except for their lessons, they're still able to make great progress if they have their weekly lesson. It's because during the lesson, they can they have a really good sort of practice for that time. So, and then they don't undo. But sometimes practicing can undo good habits. All right, so this book provides 12 methods that can help you maintain focus and awareness, plus hopefully boost the results and efficiency of your practice. Oh, got one more. Sorry, just letting Ronald in there. These are methods that I've used myself and teach to my students. And this piece by Carcassi is used as a sort of a model to demonstrate all of the methods with. Okay, so if you're not familiar with it, it sounds like this. Alright, that's in and okay, so that's the piece. Hopefully many of you know that or can sort of read through it or understand it enough so that you see that how to apply the actual method. So for today, we'll let me just check your chat. Let me get this chat here. So okay, and oh yes, Shirley is a harp player primarily, and she's been doing a fantastic job with composing for the harp recently through one of the courses that I've been doing on composition. And so Shirley's making the point that these things apply to any instrument. So I think that's true. Good practice methods, or the art of practicing can really apply to any instrument. Eli over there is also another newly formed composer. Someone who's new to composing, and Eli plays several instruments, including guitar. So hopefully. Yeah, these can. Someone's raised their hand. Philip, do you have something to add, Philip? Do you play another instrument, or did you raise? I've never seen hand raised before in Zoom, so I don't know what that means, or if you've just accidentally done that. But if you have something to say, feel free to chip in. Anyway, so for today, if you do have a question, I'd prefer, if someone's playing or if someone's talking, I'd prefer if you could please leave your question in the comments. But I'll try to open up, during our time, I'll sort of open it up to questions as well. So today we'll just look at the, the first three methods: divide and conquer, practice at the seams, and mix and match. Okay, so we'll just look at the first three methods. These are probably, I think, the most foundational out of all of them in a way, and probably the most counterintuitive. All right, so let's talk about divide and conquer first. Maybe after I talk about this is when I'd love to get some involvement from you, if you'd like to have a go at practicing in front of everyone. No pressure. So divide and conquer, this is a method that I introduced early on to all of my students. So I don't know if I have any of my students here or not, but you'd hear me say divide and conquer. So saying I like to use, whether young, old, advanced, or beginner. Getting comfortable with an entire piece of music is overwhelming. Breaking it into small, bite-sized chunks is not. It sounds obvious, but if you really think about your practice, you might just want to assess if you're practicing in this way or not. It's better to make a lot of progress on a little material than a little progress on a lot of material. And this is one of the key advantages to divide and conquer. It allows you to make a lot of progress and in a short amount of time. Whereas if you're trying to work on an entire piece or page of music, you'll probably be making very, very small progress. Segovia said that he would practice a single passage for weeks, burnishing it until it sparkled. It's one of my favorite quote of mine. A single passage for weeks, burnishing it until it's sparkled. It's a beautiful sort of imagery to think about. So what I found is that the most common approach people use for learning a new piece is to just play it from start to finish over and over and over again. This method is okay to do once in a while, but practicing in bite-sized chunks will give you better and faster results, most of the time. So we should divide our pieces up into bite-sized pieces so that we can conquer them in every aspect. Okay, so we can do this with Carcassi's Andantino, right? So the original piece is about 3 lines long without the repeats. So if we just take one line, that's already a form of divide and conquer, okay? But, is that enough? And this is where, a little bit of intuition and thought and consideration can come into it. Like, how much do you want to practice? Maybe 1 bar is plenty, maybe just 1 bar of music. Does that sound sort of preposterous to anyone? Like, is that a very, very small amount of, material than you would know? Yeah, people seem okay. So you sort of familiar, you're kind of used to practicing, maybe one bar at a time, that kind of thing. Okay. So yeah, you could break it up 1 bar at a time, and then there are some things you can think about here. So I've just got a list of, and this is what I think is probably the next important step, right? That's the divide part. So dividing it up into a line or a bar, that's only one key. The second key is the conquer part. And I mean, divide and conquer is kind of like a term used in warfare. I don't like to think of practice as warfare, but it's just that the words really, I think, describe the process very, very clearly. So, but just don't think of it like you're going to war. It's just divide and conquer. Maybe think of it like a pizza or a cake. You're slicing up the cake so that you can, conquer it in one bite at a time, and enjoy it. So we have a couple of comments. Shirley says that she finds practicing small chunks as meditative. Yeah. 1 bar is good. Malak, Jean-Francois, I think that's your name. 1 bar at a time is great for difficult passages and complex timing of some pieces. Yeah. And King Shook, I love to divide even to beats, beat by beat. Good on you. Yeah. So that's the divide aspect. Someone else here. So the conquer aspect is where I think is equally, if not more important. It's very, very, very crucially important as well. And that really involves, I think, asking questions and, having a certain consideration about what you're doing, deliberation and a consideration. Just letting in some more people. All right. So here are some things you could think about. You could analyze the musical and technical content of the chunks. Okay, so that's already going to take a little bit of time. You could work out the best fingerings for left and right hands. You could nail the rhythm, meaning, play the rhythm really strictly, using a metronome, for example. You could think about the balance of the melody and the accompaniment, or whatever the texture is. If it's contrapuntal, if it's a fugue, and there's a subject you need to bring out, or a melody on the top of an arpeggio, whatever it is. What dynamics you're going to use. You could memorize the chunk. You could work on improving your technique, minimizing unnecessary movements, using good posture of your hands and your body, using a mirror. Okay, so these considerations are super important. What you don't want to do, I write about this later on, you want to try and avoid a sort of a cruise control type of practice where it's kind of mindless. So you can divide, you could practice small chunks, but it could be mindless, and you're not really sort of paying attention or considering things like this. So the advantage, excuse me, the advantage of this is that you can and should, make a lot of progress very quickly if you're not finding yourself making progress, I think you need to stop and sort of assess, like, what can I do? What can I do to actually make some progress with this? What is it that's, slowing me down or holding me back, or what am I not enjoying about this? You want to sort of don't try to, just the try and try again, and until you succeed sort of mentality, or no pain no gain, or it's you can change things if something's not working. You can change your approach. Okay, so that's divide and conquer. I think a fairly obvious one. Maybe for some it's not. Maybe for some, you've never practiced like this. I mean, I've come across students who have pretty much never really practiced this way, or if they have, it's just very, basically nil. So it's really, I think, really good to address this, and I think very foundational to practice, because it's really like quality over quantity in a way with this practice method. So now that we've talked about this a little bit, I would love to get someone to demonstrate and experiment with this a little bit, with divide and conquer, with a piece that you're working on. Is there anyone who would like to have a go? Anyone that has a little passage that they're working on, then I'd like to. I know the first one's always the hardest to. Once we get one volunteer, then I know that more and more will hopefully want to. Anyone? Joannes, you putting your hand up?
I'm happy to.
Shirley, okay. Could we do? Sure, let's do Shirley, and then Joannes. Did I see you put your hand up? Yeah, cool. So we have at least two. And forgive me if I can't see or hear you saying. There's a few people here, so I'm trying to keep track. Let's start with Shirley. I'll put your video on. So what are you working on, Shirley?
Well, what I'm going to do is I'll play a little bit of the piece that you were playing.
Sure, yeah. Let me just, I need to grab my headphones. If you could just put just 1 second, because I know the sound can go funky when I'm talking here. So I'll just be, if you could just set up, and I'll be right back with my headphones. Sorry, I forgot to get them. Thanks everyone for your patience there. I know that there can be some funny echo that happens when I don't have my headphones on. So, okay, there we go.
Yeah, I've actually decided to do one of the harp piece that I'm working on.
Your harp piece.
Recordos de Ipercaria.
Okay.
And it will just be 2 bars that I'll do. So
Okay.
that's all. That's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 bars would be
Or
great.
do you want a little bit?
2 bars would be fantastic, please.
That was just actually 3 bars.
3 bars.
It's 3. Yeah, it's 3/4 with the Paraguayan bass like this.
Okay, great. So Shirley, what sort of, when you're practicing something like that, what are you sort of thinking about when you?
I'm thinking about how the left hand and the right hand work together.
Okay, how the hands work together. Okay.
Yeah, and I look for little things in the music that may not be immediately obvious, such as there's a little bit of syncopation in the first bar, which occurs regularly. About every fourth bar is syncopated. And there's also a crotchet in my right hand and two quavers in the left hand.
Okay. Yep. So how the hands are working together, and the rhythmic subtleties. Okay. Yeah. That's
Yes.
great. One thought about the hands there, Shirley, is, would you say primarily on the harp? I don't know the harp very well, but is the left hand generally like an accompaniment and the right hand melody? Does it kind of work out that way?
Usually, it depends on the style in which you play.
Okay.
But yes,
A lot of the
yes,
time,
you're
yeah.
right.
Sort of like the piano. So
Most of the time.
So that to me, well, like from hearing that example, I'm not familiar with it, but that's something that I thought could warrant a bit of consideration as to what, the melody and the accompaniment. And you talked about the hands, how they're working together. Perhaps the melody could be more present, and the accompaniment could be softer. That's sort of a dynamic consideration. So could you practice it again, and maybe, and here's another aspect, of divide and conquer, is you can sort of swap your focus, right? So when we were asking those questions, or those considerations, like analyze the content, work out the best fingerings, now the rhythm, you're not doing all of that in one go, right? It's too much to think about. You're just doing one of those. You're sort of asking one question at a time. So, and yeah, it will depend on the particular passage as to what sort of questions you might ask. So with this one, I feel like the interplay of melody and accompaniment is a fairly important, factor. Would everyone else agree with that? Like after just hearing a few bars, were you sort of like, were you thinking about something else? Was there something else that that kind of struck you about the music? You feel free to type or unmute if you have any thoughts. Yeah. Okay. So Shirley, could you try it again this time, and please maybe think about the melody and the accompaniment and what sort of balance you would like to have in this passage.
Sorry, I had a lever up that I shouldn't have had. I went further up the harp and I had an F sharp engaged. I apologise.
No worries. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. To me, that sound is a lot clearer in terms of what the melody and the accompaniment was. The distinction between them.
I went a register up the harp.
Oh, you went a register up the harp. Oh, you play. Oh, well, that's cool. Yeah. You can just do that. I see. And this is where other factors might come into play. Like on the guitar, we might think about things like, should we use rest stroke for the melody? I'm not sure on what you can do on the harp, but what sort of how can you use the expressive tools of your instrument, or the technique that we use to play the instrument, to enhance whatever feature we're going for? So is there some sort of like, what a rest stroke, you pluck the string like this rather than, is there some sort of equivalent on the harp or something similar that?
See, I could. see, that's it. So it's a matter of how they work together.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. And my other question that I'm wondering is that the last sort of three or four notes you're playing, are they, would you call them accompaniment or melody?
Um, well, I think that the the third bar, there is two dotted crotchets in the right hand, and there is that two quavers that are crotchet in the left hand.
Hmm. Yeah, so those quavers in the
So
left hand, I feel like they might be accompaniment. If
yeah,
you do you agree with that? But the way that the way that they're coming out, that they're coming across quite strong, as though that's the melody. So maybe you could bring down those last notes there.
yeah,
That's it. That
like
kind of thing. Yeah, that's it. So could you play it once again, one more time, and bring out the melody all the way, and then keep that accompaniment underneath,
yeah.
softer, more suppressed all the way also. Yeah.
That better?
That was a little. That was better. I think maybe I thought maybe the left hand still seemed a little strong towards the end, but overall the balance is much clearer. Yeah, overall the balance is a lot clearer. So that was just one aspect. Really talking about the balance between the parts. Um, and there could be, many other aspects to consider. But maybe we'll move on to someone else. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you for demonstrating on the beautiful harp
Thank
again.
you. That's very
Okay, so
helpful.
I hope that was helpful. It's just a little,
It was,
little
yes.
taste there. So we had Joannes. Is that how we pronounce your
That
name?
is correct. That is correct.
Excellent, excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear. I can hear. We can hear you. Well, I can hear you. Do you want everyone else? Yes. Yep. Good. Yep. Awesome. There's a little bit of a static noise or something, but it's not too bad. Let me get you up on the screen here, Joannes. Okay. Awesome. So what are you? I like that guitar that you got up on the wall there. What what are you working on? What pieces or
I
what would you like
have
to
one,
demonstrate?
I have one specific passage. It's a shift in Romanza Anonyme, and
Yep.
it's the second section.
Yep.
And I am working on this to make it 100% sure that I can do the shift.
Awesome. So you got a very specific sort of a specific thing going on here. Can I just ask you before you play it? Actually, no. Could you play it first, and then maybe I'll ask some questions. Sorry. Yeah. Could you play it first? Thank you.
I have to start from the beginning because
Yeah. Hang on, just one second, Johannes. There is a lot of static sound. There's a sort of a static noise. I don't know if you can fix up your microphone or uh, if you.
I put my microphone a little bit
It's better.
down.
It's
Better?
better. It's better.
Okay. I can put it a little bit more down.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's better. We might have to turn our volume up a little bit, but it's clearer. So thank you. Okay, yeah, if you could demonstrate, please.
This this shift.
That one? Okay. Okay.
So I'm practicing it a lot
Hmm.
because sometimes it goes, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. So you're already doing divide, and you're already sort of practicing that little fragment there, that little chunk.
Yes.
Yeah. So what have you been doing to try to make the shift,
Lately,
more enjoyable?
the last time when I was practicing, I practiced with chords. That means
Okay, chunking the notes. Yep.
and
Yeah.
is trying to see where my fingers go
Yeah.
and see that I match every time quickly. But sometimes I miss it.
Yeah. Sometimes you miss it. Yeah.
That was what I'm practicing a lot.
Okay. Okay. So I think we could ask some questions then, and so I can get the score up too. I think this is I have the score. Put the score up here. So you're in the B section. So it's right, and this is something I suggest also everyone does, is that with any sort of thought that you have, any consideration, if it's a fingering or a dynamic or a thought of more general thought, it's really handy to get your score out and write it into the score. And again, that can sound very obvious, but I've seen many blank scores in my time teaching, and I like to see scores that have some, annotations, some markings. I think that can be really helpful because it's hard to remember everything that we think about. Even the next day, we might forget something, and so Joannes, that spot was that. This is a bit different. This has an A in the bass. You've got an F in the bass, yeah. So, but the spot is right here, yeah. It's sort of like going from this spot to that spot, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So one question I might ask you is how quickly do you want to get to this chord?
Yeah, fairly quickly, because I wanted not to make it too slow, and yeah, I have a kind of melody in my head what I like to hear. And
Yeah, you have a melody in your head that. So how do you want to hear the melody?
it's this like more or less like this.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I can get you to just maybe question. I think how you're hearing it. I never like to have a right or wrong with music, but I just want to ask a question, which is, how many what sort of a phrase structure is this piece using? Is there a certain pattern, a number of bars, that each phrase has a duration of, is it 4 bars or 2 bars or something like that?
It's a 4-bar.
4-bar, yeah. So that happens to be here, right? That would be the 4-bar phrase, wouldn't it? So
Yeah.
my question here is maybe,
Divide it in 2, but I think it's a 4-bar in general.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like two, like there's a sort of a sub phrase in there each time, isn't there, with the 2 bars? But the 4-bar seems, yeah. So perhaps you could use the shift as an opportunity to take some time and make it more, maybe, like a singer. I mean, it's a big leap. You've got this D sharp to a C sharp. It's almost an octave. It's a seventh. A leap of a seventh. It's a very big leap. So I have the feeling that you're trying to get there faster than than is practical. You're sort of wanting to play it, and I appreciate what you're trying to do. You're sort of wanting to keep the flow going, really, keep the momentum going. But perhaps maybe having a pause and an opportunity to make that shift, you can turn I mean, this is something you think it's like you can turn something that's a difficulty into something that's beautiful, right? So you can make that what we're thinking of as a difficult shift. You actually use it as an opportunity to take some time and make it a beautiful moment. You know, music is often full of like beautiful moments, like moments where you get a bit of, you know, goosebumps, and that to me, that's almost one of those spots. So this is more of a musical consideration, perhaps. Yeah. So you were aware that there were 4-bar phrases. So do you want to give it a try again? See what happens. Yeah.
Etc.
That was pretty nice. That was nice. Yeah. So just to go backtrack a bit with phrasing, you said you were thinking of 2-bar phrases as well, right? So people can, you know, if you agree with what I say here, maybe you can, you know, give a thumbs up or a nod. But I feel like you're really trying to push across here into the 2-bar, and rather than easing, you're sort of pushing ahead. And then doing the same thing again. So you're sort of maybe doing the opposite of maybe what you want, what you your musical.
I practiced
right?
this way a long time, so maybe it's not so easy for me to change my concept.
Yeah, it's not. It's yeah. Give it another try, and don't be afraid. This is another thing too. When it comes to changing something, yeah, nice, beautiful. Yeah. Kevin has a comment that he would spend time just practicing bar 19. Yeah, you could do that. I think at the moment it's useful also to include 18 as well, 18, 19, because there's something, I'm hearing a pattern here that's occurring here and here. So what I'm hearing, and this is another thing about practicing, is really like listening really, you know, deeply to what's actually going on, and it's hard to do that excuse me, a lot of the time. That's why having a teacher is so helpful, because a teacher can, you know, they're not involved, they're just able to just listen with full attention. When we're playing, it's harder to give 100% attention. But Joannes, what I notice is, and this is a very common, I find this a fairly common pattern, is that in this juncture between the phrases, these 2 notes here get a little bit lost, a little bit rushed. These last 2 notes. I find this happens a lot with tremolo. You know, that kind of thing, where it's like just before the shift, the notes just before the shift just get a little bit, you know, they lose that clarity and that full length that I think. So I wonder if you could play it again and give those 2 notes as much elbow room, as much breathing space. Same goes with these ones as well. Maybe I could demonstrate just to give you an idea. I'll sort of exaggerate it just to put that into your ear a little bit. Right? Oh, sorry. I didn't do a fantastic job there, but hopefully it gave you an idea. Yeah, sort of using, and again, it's just an opportunity to turn a difficulty, which is that, like trying to sort of continue the music flowing, continue a sort of momentum that kind of makes it more difficult too. And it's like turning that difficulty into something beautiful. I think that little phrase off gives a chance. It's like when a singer sings a melody and they take that little breath, you know, and then they get here, they take a bigger breath, and then they get this big beautiful leap up there. So we're getting some comments. D. Salvador changes the tack of the timing. My suggestion changes the tack. Yeah, you want to do this with balance. You know, you're not. And then we're getting some. You know, like Deb saying, music is pretty fluid. Yeah, just like reading. Like if we're reading a book or speaking, you know, we do a lot of things with the pacing of the text, of the language, of the words that are not necessarily written. You know, it's not indicated. It's not telling us how to read a sentence, but we do certain things. We emphasize certain words, that kind of thing. So, and King Shuk, I think, is agreeing that a little ritardando can be helpful for that shift. Yeah. So, could you try one more time, please? And really give yourself full permission here. This is another thing about practicing. You are absolutely free to do whatever you like to the greatest extent that you like, right? There's no practice police that are gonna, fine you if you do something that's too much, right? Yeah. So you can do, if you want to totally exaggerate it, just to get the, just to try. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, nice job. Good job, Joannes. Especially this one, actually. That one, I really heard those two notes clearer. I feel like you could do it maybe even to a greater degree. Although D. Salvador is kind of questioning if this is going too much. Is this good for ensemble playing? Or one should respect the time. Yeah, we do need to respect the time, but I think we also need to respect the phrasing as well, because I mean, I think great ensemble players would probably work this out together and say, let's take or you don't even need to speak about it. Sometimes it's just an intuitive sort of a thing. But yeah, at the same, you don't want to go too far with it maybe as well, and it's down to personal preference and taste. But maybe I'll demonstrate one more time.
Yes,
just because I think it helps, just to get it into your ear. So. All right, and I'm doing what I think is maybe too much. Yeah, but I'm doing that as a means to demonstrate. Okay. Yeah. So one more time, please.
Me?
Yes, please. Yeah, one more time, Joannes.
That's it.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's getting better. I'm noticing something about this note here. If anyone did anyone else notice what's happening with this note? It's meant to be G sharp, right? What is actually happening when Joannes plays it? Anyone want to just yell out, just unmute, or do you know, Joannes, what's going on when you gotta listen very? It happens very quickly. Someone? Yeah, hear someone unmuted.
Playing a natural.
Yes, it's a natural. Is that Ronald? Was that you, Ronald?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joannes, you're actually playing a G natural at this point because of the urgency to shift. What's that? Sorry.
I was trying to play it and I was getting a different note, and then I thought that he was. Then I realised what was going on.
Yeah. So that's it. So this is a very common pattern in this kind of texture, and tremolo as well happens a lot. I've noticed it with tremolo. That last note just before a shift will sometimes be an open string instead of the note it's supposed to be. So there you go. Okay. You release too quickly. Yeah. So it's about giving yourself enough time to enough breathing space. Wait, one more time. How about one more time? And just really, really pay attention to those 2 notes just before the shift.
Wow. Yeah, it becomes more difficult. I now understand.
Well, it becomes more difficult in one aspect, in that it's different, right? It's different. It's a different experience, and this is the thing about practice, right? Practice makes permanent, not perfect. The idea that practice makes perfect is a bit funny, right? Because practice makes permanent. What you practice is the way that it's going to be. So you've been practicing it that way for, probably for a little while, and it's kind of stuck like that. So it's difficult it makes it more difficult to change it. But if you divide and conquer, it's easier, right? Because if you tried to play that from the start, and then that's the spot that you're trying to, especially in this spot, right? It's you just want to divide and conquer helps you sort of experience the progress that you're making. So, all right, so there you go. Thank you, Joannes. That was great, fantastic. Cool. Oh, we've got other people coming in. Sorry. All right, so gosh, we were going to talk about 2 more. Let's do it. We'll talk about 2 more, maybe one. Maybe we'll see. We'll see how we go. We'll see how the time sort of pans out. Now let me get my screen back here. So let's talk about the next practice method, and you might find that there are links and between one practice method and another. Where did it go? Here it is. Okay, so the next one is, and this is very related to what we just saw with Spanish Romance, right? Practice at the seams. So the danger of divide and conquer is that you can end up practicing small chunks and neglect the transition from one chunk to the next. So one solution is to practice at the seams, meaning to practice the transition from one chunk to the next. This is a very crucial method, as many difficulties often arise when transitioning from one chunk to the next. These difficulties can include changes of rhythm, texture, dynamics, tempo, mood, harmony, and so on. So in this example here, right, each chunk kind of has its own, which is a bar, basically, has its own sort of thing going on. But if we take these bar lines and we call that a seam, and we practice at those points, right? So we're basically we're sort of shifting where we're starting and ending. So we practice across the bar line. Excuse me, it's going to be quite a different experience. Instead of going like that, we're going to go right, which is often neglected. If we're doing one bar at a time, we might neglect that spot. So now you can see in seam 2 and seam 3, there's a little bit more change happening, right? There's a bit more change happening. The right hand starting to spread out a bit more, from there. And then over in seam 3, the right hand position has to shift down quite a bit, right? So you're playing on the 4th and 1st strings up here and 3rd string, and then here the 6th and the 2nd. So the right hand position starts to change a little bit, right? So we're going, if I do seam number 3, right, and you might have, that's where fingering will come into play as well. Like if you're going to use the A finger for the F and then P, M for that, or if you're going to keep on using the A finger, if you wanted to do that, right? So the fingering starts to come into play a bit more, but it's, you can hopefully notice that it's at these points here where things start to change. It's basically what I talk about here. And similar changes can often be found on a larger scale between one section and another. So in Lagrima, for example, we have hopefully you're all familiar with this piece. We have, the end of the first section, which is in E minor, in E major, and then the transition going into E minor. And there's a lot happening. There's a lot of different things that we need to sort of set up. It's sort of like a stage, You've got one scene here, and then this is sort of the setup for the new scene. And there's a lot of things we have to think about when that's happening. So, for example, if I play from here, from this. Right, so there's lots to think about. The pacing, the ritardando is one, A. B is the rhythm. The note values change. We have these two crotchets, 1, 2, and then we go to quavers. Okay, and then the last one is the key change, right? Changing mood. How are you going to set that up? Are you going to change the color of it? The dynamic, what dynamic will you use, and all that kind of thing. So a lot of considerations there, that kind of setup. So you've got this kind of smaller scale idea, practice at the seams, where it might be probably a bit more technically focused for things like this. And then this sort of thing, we're going from one section to another, which might be a bit more musically focused. Especially, and another one that's often neglected is if you're playing a program or a suite, different movements. How do you transition from one movement to another? Or how do you transition from one piece to another? Is that something you practice? Because if it's not, and it's the first time you've really thought about it when you're performing, you might get a little bit, flustered. You might be like, oh, how do I set up the tempo and the mood of the next movement or the next piece, right? So this idea of practicing at the seams, I think, is something that can be easily neglected, but really, really helpful to think about. So I guess we sort of covered this a little bit with Joannes's example with the Spanish Romance. It's sort of the phrase ending, right? That phrase ending, that's the seam there, right? So practicing. What Joannes could do is actually practice like something like that, going from, and then getting repeating that a few times and sort of getting the balance, getting the taste testing it a bit and finding the balance that he wants. Yeah, so that applies there. Another place that this could apply in this piece is the transitions from going from E minor, this section, to E major, and then back to E minor as well. So practicing those. And that's something you can also sort of divide and conquer. You can practice at the seams and divide and conquer at the same time. So, doing something, maybe not there, but maybe something like, couple bars of this section and a couple bars of the new section. And... that setup, it can be quite a magical, and again, a kind of a magical moment in the music. Yeah, and I personally, I like to actually cut the sound a little bit, just to have that, that's that feeling of that it's like a scene change, right? You might want to keep it ringing. Right? It's a different effect if you do that. And then how long you're going to wait as well, which that will affect things as well. So using that as an example, and then the going from the major to the minor. So there's an example of that. Would anyone like to use? Is there a piece that anyone has, or a passage that you feel like this kind of practice method would be well suited, would help with something like that? Does anyone Does anyone have something? I have to maybe just unmute yourself if you do, please, and let me know. La Catedral, Barrios. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Would you like to show us that spot? Are you talking? Is that like going from the first movement to the second movement, or is it within a movement, or would you like to go through that, or do you want me? Would you want me to sort of demonstrate it, or? Sean, I can't. If you could unmute yourself, please, if you're speaking. Unmute. I'll ask you to unmute. Yeah, still can't. Still, you're still on mute.
Okay, yes, that's
there
right.
you
Yes,
go.
okay.
Yeah.
I'd rather you go through with it because I can't play. I've got my ring fingernails is broken. I can't do anything.
Which can you describe what place in La Catedral?
Even the first movement where you start having the high notes to start with.
Yep.
Let's say the first 4 or 5 bars, which are
Yep.
probably some difficult chord changes, and where you, if you practice them and you know the chords, is certainly helpful.
Okay, so chord changes. Yeah. Okay, I think this will be a good. Yeah, I think we can use this one then. Yeah.
Because I started, but I said I would have played, but I have a hand. I said I have got no nails on my ring finger.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no worries. Well, thanks for thinking about this example. So what you're referring to is sort of like getting like this sort of thing, like going from one bar into another. Yeah. That is a tricky spot.
Yes.
That is a tricky sort of it's a challenging. Can be a challenging.
And to have it clear.
Right. And to have it clear. So, is there anything you've done to try and help?
I have tried to put it in sections, and I think you said chordal as well. Practice different chords.
Yeah.
So in terms of put it one chord at a time and do one movement at a time.
Yeah.
Do it slowly.
Yeah.
And I think in some instances, what I found difficult, it's the distance for the fingering is sometimes hard. I find that you have to strengthen your fingers as well to be able to have the clarity, because some chords are difficult.
Yeah, for
to
sure.
Get.
Yep.
So you have to be able to put your fingers there and strengthen your fingers to be able to get that chord in the first instance, and practice the movement from the previous chord to that movement and strengthen your muscles to be able to get that going. And that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I find so instead of playing the first piece together, what I tend to do is try to do a chord by a chord to start with.
Play it like a chord, like that, and then you play the next chord. So something like that. Yeah.
And do it for, let's say, 4 or 5 bars, and after that do one thing at a time. And after that, I find also I'm not sure whether I'm going to play it rest stroke or free stroke. And I find that when I hear as well, there seems to be a kind of I don't know, in terms of it seems to free strokes, because there seems to be like a bell sound. Yeah. When I listen to the good players playing it, there's a bell sound, and you can't reach that with a a rest stroke. But you have to be able to hit the chord and in a particular way. But after that, it's hard enough for it to sound like a bell a little bit.
Yep.
So, but I find that difficult to be able to reach that whole, get the quality of a sound, that change, and to be able to do so. I said, for me, what I try to do then is do it little by little, one step at a time. And even if it's not at the actual tempo, I find myself, if I have the technique to do it initially, then I will be able to develop speed afterwards. So I find, and I think also you need to be, I find sometimes I forget. So one thing which I find sometimes difficult is when I do a little bit of training and when I move on to something else, I tend to forget the first one.
Right.
So how do you and then afterward you return back and you have to remember again.
A couple of suggestions for that I've got for you. So one is make sure you write everything down. And I know that sounds obvious, but sometimes we don't. Okay, so write everything down. And then another is maybe at the end of the day, you could have a review session of the things you've, right? So you wrote down those things, and at the end of the day, you could just quickly review them. Yeah, so just a couple of ideas there. But it's hard. I mean, if we're practicing, thank you. You know, if we're practicing a lot of different, things, it's sort of, and I mean, just trust that if you do practice and you're enjoying it and you're doing effective practice, it will stick. Even if you don't remember it like consciously, I think it does go to the subconscious.
It becomes easier because your hands goes back to where it belongs. Right. If you spend, let's say, a day or two in a particular piece, it becomes easier when you return back to it. But I'm starting to sometimes I think I can't remember the notes, so sometimes I want to play it from memory. And I'm thinking,
memorization. Okay, memorization. That's another aspect which we the time is we. But memorize. I think if you divide and conquer, if you practice small chunks, and then that can sometimes help with memorization, because it's easier to memorize 1 or 2 bars than a whole piece. So that's just one aspect. There are quite a few other things you can do when it comes to memorization. I mean, something like on the extreme level, something that I've done in the past is to actually write out the piece by memory onto manuscript. So that's one.
Okay, but I've never done that. I'm thinking as well, what I did for the piece, for the composition course, was very helpful as well. Just stop and have a look at the piece as to
just look at the score. Yep.
Look at the score. Where is modulate? The chord progressions. And after that, write it down. And when you mentioned write it down everywhere, then when you do it a couple of times, and 2 phrases of 2 bars, and after that it goes from A major to E minor, and then by looking at that and getting into the piece, you tend to remember a bit more. So
yes,
I find that sometimes very helpful.
That's definitely another aspect. Studying and understanding the music is very helpful as well. Visualization can be another one. Just visualizing visualizations are what it in your mind, sort of playing it in your mind, and visualizing the fretboard and as much as you can the sound of it. So visualization can be helpful. Other. Maybe one more I can give you is left hand only. So practicing, this is a true test of your muscle memory. Left hand only, or finding a way to mute the strings, like with a cloth or something, and trying to play without any sound coming. So that's a test of your muscle memory. So you're sort of by using these different types of memory, like muscle memory, oral memory, when you're visualizing, understanding the music is another aspect of it. So the more of that you sort of do, I think, the more the piece will become memorized, and combined with this kind of practice of just small chunks. And what we're doing, I mean, practicing at the seams is another one, because it's a bit unpredictable. It keeps you on your toes. You're not just going through the motions. You're having to really, you're kind of like getting your brain to really switch on. So in this example, the really intuitive way to practice it would be to do maybe a bar at a time, or a couple bars at a time, and just start from the start of the bar. Right, so something like that. But the counterintuitive thing to do would be something like that, where you start at towards the end and go. and then
I don't do that enough.
Yes.
I don't do that enough.
And then you could go, you know, one note back, yeah, and extend it.
And after that, do it again.
Right? Do it again, and then you could go one note back, one note back, one note forward.
Okay.
Right? Just gradually expand it out that way. I think that sort of method would work really nicely for this particular piece. Yeah, so that's an example of practice the seams, and that really throws you off because you're starting at all these different points, right? You're not just going through the motions.
You haven't got any comfort spot when you just start. You don't know where the melodies start.
Exactly, you don't have that kind of comfort in a good way. It's kind of discomfort in a good way. You know, it's like a good kind of discomfort.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So
thank you.
that's a good good discussion. Thanks. Your name is Jean-Francois, right?
Jean-Francois. Yes, thank you.
Jean-Francois.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's finish on the third one. Before I do, I did want to mention, you know, that we've only talked about 3 here today, and I do want to offer a chance to, if you want to come back and talk about some more and play some more and, you know, see these methods in action. I'm going to do a 2-hour session on Friday as well. Okay, 2-hour session, a bit longer. Although this is getting quite a bit long already. So if you'd like to do that, I will be charging for that one because it's a little bit longer, and this is just a bit of a, you know, dip your toes in to experience. So it'll be $60 Australian dollars for the 2 hours on Friday. Okay, so I'll send you all a link to that if you'd like to register for that. Okay, so
thank you.
I'll put a link in here. I'll put a link in now if you want to check it out. All right, but
yes,
I'll also send you all a link to that. It'd be really lovely to keep going and explore more of these methods. So here is the link. I'm putting it in Zoom, but I'll also email it to you. Okay. And you can check out, I'm wanting to do some more workshops on other topics too in the coming weeks. So if you're interested, it'll be a very similar format. I'll do a sort of a free, you know, introduction to get you, you know, if you want to just get a taste, and then we'll do a bit more of a more intensive session later on in the week. Okay, so let's quickly take a look at the last method that I said we would look at, the third one, which I think this is another one that's similar to practice at the seams in that it kind of throws you a little bit in a good way. It's a bit uncomfortable in a good way. Mix and match. So as I've already said, you know, many people practice the piece from start to finish over and over again, or if you do practice small chunks, you might tend to practice them, you know, in a certain way from the start of the bar to the end of the bar, that kind of thing. So mix and match here. This is really about trying to give equal attention to an entire piece of music. So in the second paragraph here, I say that we know from experience our minds only have limited attention span, right? You guys have all done a good job, you know, for about an hour and a quarter here, like paying attention. So, you know, good job with that. But when we're practicing, the first thing that we practice will probably be given the best treatment, right? And the last thing you practice will probably be given the worst treatment, or the least amount of thought, or the least amount of consideration. So if you constantly practice a piece from the start, you'll find yourself improving a lot at the start, but getting progressively worse until the end. This is a pattern I've seen in many students, right? It's that the first, you know, couple of lines or the first page tend to be just more well prepared than the second page or the last line, you know. So mix and match is starting your practice at different points. So, you know, on one day of the week or in one practice session, you could start you can start. David Wilson, been there, done that. Is that in reference to what I'm talking about with playing? You know, like playing from the start of the piece is sort of more.
Yes,
stronger.
yes.
That's what you mean? Yeah, awesome. Okay, great. So, so this is maybe. I mean, now that I'm kind of showing you this, it might sound kind of obvious, but until I sort of thought about it and wrote it down, and I was kind of like, oh, it's sort of something that I think will be very helpful. So, so yeah, one day or one practice session, you could start at one place. It doesn't have to be the start; it can be anywhere. Mix and match, right? You could start at the end. You could start at the last bar. You could start in the middle. You could start somewhere towards the beginning. You could start at the beginning, and then do it out of sequence too. So you could do like these two bars, or you could practice across the seams. You could do these two bars and that bar, and then you could go over to the end and do, the last 3 bars or whatever you want to do. Just breaking it up in putting yourself, again, keeping yourself on your toes, keeping yourself sort of excited and like, what am I going to do next? I'll try from here. It's like avoiding that sort of going through the motions type of feeling. So, here's just what have I done here? Large scale mix and match, right? So if you've got a whole piece, that's what I'm talking about, starting different points, and then small scale mix and match. If you are doing a sort of a divide and conquer type of thing, then instead of playing the 1, 2, 3, 4 in sequence, you can do it out of sequence. Okay, so has anyone tried playing the piece backwards? Yeah, that's another idea. D. Salvador, yeah, you do that often. That's cool. So you could do backwards. I mean, backwards could be literally backwards, like playing the last note and then going backwards one note at a time. Or backwards, you could do like the last bar and then do the second last bar and then the third last bar. Or what we were doing earlier with the practice of the seams, where you could sort of expand out and in what you're doing. Like you're sort of going from there and then you go like that, right? And then you practice that and then you go expand, out, in and out like that. So yeah, there's a few different ways you can apply this. And Ronald's also saying here that you often do this. That's really cool. At the end of a practice session, I pick a starting point for the next practice session, so I don't waste time deciding where to start next session. That's a good one. I like that idea. Yeah, because you can sort of think about what spots have you covered this practice session or this day. I've covered, this and this spot. So next time I'll make sure to cover this and this spot. So again, it's good to have some written record of that, if it's on the score or in a journal or something, or on your phone, or just somewhere that's easy to access, so that you remember. Ronald, how do you remind yourself? Do you put a note in the score, or do you have a journal, or you write it on the score? Yeah, cool. That's great. I really love putting things in the score because the score is usually in front of us. Sometimes if we have a journal, I've found that the journal's like off somewhere else, and I can't be sort of bothered sometimes to go and get it. I'll just be like, oh, it's in another room, so I won't get it. But scores are usually close by. So, cool. So a teacher taught you to do that and date it as well. I also suggest using different colors too in your music, because that can help you, different bits of information sort of pop out using color, and that could be dated as well, like certain colors for certain dates to further reinforce that. So okay, so there's some mix and match, so starting at different points. Now here's another pattern I observe with students, and you might have experienced this yourself. Sometimes a teacher might ask you, oh, can you play from bar 9 or from bar 7, all of a sudden, and then the student sort of, some students can do it quite easily, and then others just there's just this total block about doing that. They have to go right back to the start of the piece, or they have to go back to a sort of a main section or something like that. They do that in exams too, yeah? Okay. So this, if you've done this mix and match, then you'll be pretty well prepared for that sort of thinking, right? Being able, that sort of preparation. It's a different sort of preparation. Yeah, so maybe we could try this. Kevin's got posted sticky notes on the score to remind me next time. That's another good one too. Sticky notes. Yeah, good one. I've never thought of doing that. That's a good one. Is there anyone who feels maybe less comfortable with this sort of, like if you're asked to, play from a certain bar or something that, is there anyone who'd like to dive in and try, to play at from different points, from different spots, random spots, so to say, for now? Anyone, if you're putting your hand up, doesn't look like anyone's wanting to volunteer. Well, how about I ask, is there anyone who, here we go, we've got a comment. Some pieces are more easy, some more difficult. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, I hear someone. Joannes again? Yeah?
I want to ask you or tell you something. I have
Yeah.
very bad eyesight and I'm waiting for an operation for my eye. So
Yeah.
I have at the moment difficulties to do that.
Oh, okay, I see. All right, okay. Well, thanks for your enthusiasm for wanting to volunteer. Hope your eyesight get eye surgery or whatever it is goes successfully. Is there anyone who? Oh, we've got someone. Kevin. Yes, thank you.
I'll give it a shot if you like.
Excellent. Okay, so what piece would you like to use?
Well, I'm working on the Sarabande by Francis Poulenc at the moment.
Okay, cool.
And it's got 25, 26, 29 bars by the looks of it. And it would be quite a challenge just to go in and pick a random bar.
Random bar. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting the score up now. So is this something that you're, if you were asked to just start at a certain bar, is that specific to this piece, or with other pieces are you a bit more comfortable with, starting at?
No, it's something that I think applies to just about every piece I play.
Okay.
So yeah, just picking a random bar is going to be a challenge.
Okay. Now this score doesn't have bar numbers. Can you just confirm? Does your score look like this, or does it look different?
No, it's pretty much like that.
Pretty much like that. Awesome. Okay. Okay. So, could you just play a little bit of the start, just to give us a taste of this piece?
Yeah, sure.
Just maybe the first couple of bars.
Yep. Okay.
That's beautiful. Yeah, maybe we'll stop there. Thank you. Yeah, that definitely rings a bell now. Okay, so let's mix and match it a little bit. And I'm seeing some repeat, some of that material sort of comes back later on. Could you play from the fourth line, start of the fourth line, please?
2, 3, 4. Yeah. That's. Hang on a second. Actually, my score isn't exactly the same as yours. It's the same notes, but it's set out slightly differently.
Quickly put in some bar numbers. Do you have bar numbers in your score?
I do, yes.
Okay. 7, 9, 10. So bar 11, please.
Bar 11, okay.
Nice, very good, very good. That, you seem very comfortable with that. Can you go
That was a surprise.
Bar 15, please.
13, 14, 15.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Could you go from 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th last bar, if you know what I mean?
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, got that one.
Yeah. Great. Beautiful. All right. Thank you for demonstrating that. I might take this a little bit further because this is sort of like the, I guess, rudiment, like the, you know, the basic mix and match, like at a basic level. There are other things you can do which can be that can make mix and match more useful if you're already fairly comfortable with it. So this sort of practice method can be really great for a couple of things. So one is from a memorization point of view. For example, this melody at the start comes back towards the end, right over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
But is it exactly the same? Like, does it change at some point? Yeah. So it looks like it changes the second bar.
It does,
here,
yes.
Right. That's different to this second bar over here. Okay. And this is what one of my old teachers, I remember, you know, very. I love this term that he used to use. He called it a wormhole. So something that can be very common to have happen is that you might get to this point here later on in the piece, and then instead of playing this bar, you'll travel the wormhole over to here. Yeah, you might find yourself. Is that something you've experienced, Kevin?
Yeah, certainly done that.
Yeah,
not
done
necessarily
that,
with this piece, but I've certainly done it with other
pieces. Yeah, and it's something I've done, and sometimes you can get into this whole circle where you've gone right back, and then you're like, oh, what, you know, if you're in a performance, it's like, what do I do now? You know, it's like, do I fake it to the end, or do I just play through the whole thing again? You know, especially if you've been taken back to virtually the start of the piece, that's an unfortunate wormhole. Sometimes it's not as drastic as that. So something that can be really useful is treating it from a memorization point of view. So you could practice these, you know, I feel like maybe the first 4 bars would be good. The first 4 or so bars sort of feels like a sort of a phrase, and then intentionally wormhole over to here, yeah, and then practice these 4 bars. Or it looks like this. There's a sort of a 5-bar phrase going on here because he's using this material again. Right, he's using these 2 bars come back. It's like he's interrupted the phrase from the start with these 2 bars. It's like he's added these 2 bars in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right, because 1, 2, 3. There's a different. This bar's different here, right? But he's mixed as a composer. He's kind of mixing and matching the music, if you know. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
so,
that's actually one of the things that makes this piece a little awkward because he does keep repeating things that he's done before, but he puts them in a different context.
And it makes memorization can be a bit frustrating sometimes because you're like, oh, what is that? You know, what is that? So you can use mix and match to help with that, and jump around to those different points and practice them so that you in back to back you sort of you're prepared for it. So you could do these. Maybe you could demonstrate, Kevin, these 4 bars and then wormhole over to, sorry I don't have bar numbers, but where it comes back later on and do those 5 bars, and let's hear see if that helps.
Okay. Okay, and then the second version.
Something like that. Nice. I had sort of requested 4 bars, but you only did 2. But that's fine.
All right.
That's actually, you might have felt more comfortable just with 2, and that's totally fine. So that's exactly the sort of thing.
Messes with your head a little bit.
Messes with your head. It keeps you on your toes. Yeah, keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
You're a bit uncomfortable, but in a good way. Yeah, you're prepared for that contrast
definitely.
later on. So that's one advantage. Another advantage of mix. If you're going to sort of a deeper level with it, that's one advantage of mix and match for memorization. The other is to do with dynamics, particularly dynamics, but it could also be tempo. It depends on the particular example. Excuse me, but I notice in this one, dynamics seems to be one. So what I mean by that is, I'll just use the start again as a reference, right? You've got this piano dynamic. So playing this bar, piano, and then shooting over to maybe a mezzo forte dynamic. Okay, so going from there, piano, and then here, mezzo forte. And doing that sort of back to back, I mean, it is kind of, in a way, it's back to back already, but you've got this bar in the middle, which is kind of building because you've got another voice coming in. But if you can basically play the first bar and then immediately play the third bar and then try to hear the contrast of dynamics, make that contrast as clear as you would like it to be. Do you understand?
Okay.
Do you want to give that a go?
Yeah. And whether I can do it or not.
Well, yeah, let's give it a go. That's great. Awesome. Yeah. So that would be a great little chunk to work on. Personally, I feel like your piano could be softer. It seems like when you get to the mezzo forte, you're really having to push. So maybe your piano could be a bit softer. I mean, you've got a great expressive romantic sound, so I don't want to take that away. But if you can sort of do it.
Okay.
And then, right, it's a very different kind of character, different statement, isn't it?
Okay,
from one to the other. Do you want to give it a go? Yeah. That was nice. That felt better. Maybe the piano could still be softer, though, perhaps. But that was a significant improvement from the first time, and that only took one more repetition, right? So, and then you can do. I mean, you can kind of use this as a reference. You know, piano and then forte. So there's a forte here, right? So you could go back to back. You could go do this bar piano and then this one forte. Let me give that a go.
Yeah.
Jumping around from there to there.
Okay. I've lost my 40 bit. There we go. Let me do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
like that. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, fantastic. So you can see there's a sort of change in color, change in the statement, a change in the way that it's
It
the
really,
character.
it really makes the difference stand out, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it makes the difference stand out, and then you start to associate a particular sound or character with that dynamic, which I think dynamic should be. You should go beyond just loud. You sort of trying to figure out what's the actual sentiment, what's the meaning of it, what's the sound of it, the quality of it, all of those sorts of things. Because forte, piano, mezzo forte, they're very vague terms. So in a way, but yeah, doing that can help to compare and contrast, and then that can help to give further meaning to what it is they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for demonstrating so well. So that
Thank you.
Hopefully that opens up, the possibilities for everyone who's watching. What you can do. I mean, even this, mezzo forte. You could go from the mezzo forte to the piano at the end here with all these fermatas, or there's a mezzo forte there too. But that's just with dynamics. There are other. So this can be very useful for tempo. In a piece like Asturias, for example, where you've got this, the stuff, and then you get the, and then, right, you've got all these different sorts of textures, different chords and things, and sometimes different arpeggio patterns, but keeping the same tempo is fairly crucial. You don't want one texture to sort of be slower than another just due to technical reasons. And so doing what I just did there, going from one type of arpeggio or one type of texture straight into another one and then straight into another one, and trying to maintain the same tempo, can be a really useful way to, without just having that. I mean, you could do that with a metronome, but it's kind of like giving yourself a metronome of reference, if you know what I mean. You're constantly referring back to the start, and then using that tempo from the start and placing it into a new texture, and then placing it into another new texture, and so on. So, and D. Salvador, sorry, I missed your question. The piano lasts until the mezzo forte. Yeah, I don't know. He's just put in the, what I call the macro dynamics, like piano, mezzo forte. He hasn't put any crescendos and decrescendos and things like that. So I don't know. That's a very good question to think about. Should that piano last until the mezzo forte, or does he want a crescendo, based on the sort of texture he's using? It's a good question definitely to think about. So, all right, I think we'll maybe wrap it up there. So hopefully that gave you some tools to help you be, enjoy practice. And I feel like a theme that's sort of come up is maybe having, as much thoughtfulness and care and consideration as you can to what you're doing, to the music and to yourself and your ideas and your thoughts, and not just kind of, bashing away or, that kind of thing. So hopefully that's given you some tools and methods, and you do have the book. And thanks, David. It's great to have you. Thank you to everyone who demonstrated. And if you want to come back on Friday, I'd love to do this again for a couple of hours. We all almost have been a couple of hours today, but it'll be great to work with you a bit more. And so thanks for being here. I'll upload this recording for you and send that to you as well if you want to watch through again. And
Thank everyone.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Deb. Thank you, Eli, Larry, D Salvador, thank you. Duvam, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your names. Duvam, thank you. Yvonne, thanks for being here, Yvonne. Jean Francois, thank you. Thanks, Shirley. Good to see you again. Ronald, thank you. Well, thank you, King Shook. If you have questions, as well, feel free to send me a message, and hope to see you on Friday if you can make it. Otherwise, wish you all the best and happy practicing. Have a good day or good night wherever you are, and see you around. Thank you. Bye. Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye, everyone. Sort of awkward leaving Zoom. I don't know. I'm just going to end the session now. Okay. See you later. Bye.